Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deconfine the International Digital Media Art Festival. And this is our first conversation that's taking place as part of the festival, so we are very excited. My name is Proiti. I'm one of the curators of this festival, and we are very glad to have you all here. And I want to extend my gratitude to all the participants today. I will introduce them in a short while. And thank you to everyone who's decided to join us today. We are talking about two very interesting projects that reflect on society and technology, which is, of course, the major theme for this festival. And these projects use technology, they leverage the potential of technology to impact society, to empower communities. And we are very excited to learn more about them directly from the founders of these projects. And without further ado, I will go on to introduce all our speakers. So we have first the Hidden Pockets Collective, which is an India-based charity organization run by young people focused on a rights-based framework on abortion and adolescent sexuality. It conducts research and gathers community-driven information on sexual and reproductive health and helps policymakers in making community-assisted decisions. And they have an open source community driven approach towards health and usage of technology. And they aim to create more inclusive spaces for young women tech makers and policy makers to come together. From Hidden Pockets, we have Aisha Lovely George, who is a fellow of the Unleash Innovation Lab, Copenhagen, and the fellow of Asia's Safe Abortion Partnership, India. She is also a trained peer educator by Enfold, India, and she is the executive coordinator at Hidden Pockets Collective. She is a trained counselor, a trained sexuality educator, and has been awarded for her contribution in CSE and social inclusion of children by multiple organizations. We also have from Hidden Pockets Jasmine Lovely George, who is a lawyer, a TEDx speaker, and a sexual and reproductive health advocate who sees social value in technology. She is a feminist activist, and she is particularly focused on sexual and reproductive rights as a member of RESURJ, an international feminist collective. She founded Hidden Pockets Collective, and she currently works there as the coordinator of knowledge production. She is a fellow of Women Deliver and YCI Rise Up Fellowships. And thank you, Aisha and Jasmine, for being here. I will also introduce Natasha, who is active in the free software communities in academic and art practices. She has been an active member of several groups producing critical software, alternative social media, and art installations in Europe. And she recently co-founded a research organization in Brussels, which we would like to hear a bit about as well, if she doesn't mind, where she concentrates on researching the specificities of free software and particularly its benefits to collective practices. And she will talk about InCommon, which is a cooperative data library that allows civil society and social economy actors to map and share their data. It brings together different community mapping projects and aims to share information on community resources and to support the articulation of citizens' movements around a shared platform. Thank you very much, all three of you, for being with us today. And I really look forward to hearing you talk about your projects. So I think let's move and hear about your projects directly, and then we can have a short question answer round. I think your microphone is muted.
So, hi everyone. I'm Aisha George, and she said, I'm the executive coordinator. So, Hidden Pockets basically works on sexual and reproductive health and rights for young women, and we work a lot on, sharing information related to safe abortion, about contraceptives to young people, and we also work on adolescent sexuality. Um, we try our best to use technology to reach more people and more young people, and through technology solving big problems, trying out we try our best to figure out ways how we can use technology and make things simpler and spread the information as far as possible. So, Hidden Pockets Collective, we have two big aspects when it comes to technology. One is creating podcasts, and the other is using maps. So I would be talking about podcasts, and then later my colleague Jasmine will talk about maps. So we thought of creating podcasts because right now, like the country I come from, India, many of us have access to internet, and most of us are always on internet. So we thought we should create some content which can flow inside internet, and it would be easy for young people to access it. And this is specifically, I'm talking about students from school and children living in communities who don't have much access to going to institutions where they can learn things. So we created podcasts specifically for school children and children from communities where they can't go to schools. So this podcast series is called Pocket Shala, and where we created 5 to 6 modules on body, about menstruation, about sanitation, bullying, and growing up. And the main aim was, uh, before I tell you what all happened, I should tell you in our country, when we start topics related to sexual and reproductive health, the teachers are not very comfortable. And this is a very important topic which is usually neglected. So we thought these podcasts can be adopted by schools and teachers can play it. And they were in a form of storytelling. So it's not just about some information coming out. It's all about one story. There would be a story where there would be two characters from school, and they're talking to each other and discussing some topics like menstruation, the myths related to menstruation, bullying, school sanitation, and all. So we thought these teachers then don't have to feel shy and very awkward talking to students about such topics. They can just play this a podcast in the class and use this as a medium to introduce these topics which teachers find it very awkward to introduce. So that was the main aim behind using podcasts. And also we made sure that these podcast series are available on internet on free sources. Like we put them on archive.org, and then we also put it on SoundCloud where it can be downloadable. It is downloadable. People can download it from there. So, and also these are audio clips, so it can be used also as a mp3 player. I mean, you can, like music, you have it in your phone, you can save it on your phone and listen to it later. So that's how we thought, maybe through creating audio clips, audio in podcasts, this information can stay with children, they can keep with themselves, and through WhatsApp or other medium they can share it with each other and get accurate information, instead of going to internet and just uh, you know on Google, when we go and search for something, we get a lot of information and we don't know what is right or what is wrong. And specifically, when if you are a child, if you're a student from school and you don't know what is there and what's going to happen, I mean, there are a lot of information. So that's why this is something which would give you accurate information, and you can keep it with yourself and you can also share. So even the teachers can use it and use it in the classrooms to teach about sexual and reproductive health for schools. Then we also created podcast series called Own Your City, and this was specifically for the young women who are staying alone in city. And basically, when we talk about city, as tourism, people share where they go and eat and what do they see. But we thought, let's talk about women. How do they see a city? For example, we did a testing on a place called Pune from India, and then Bangalore. So we had two women who stayed in this place and who started telling the place where they like going. I mean, the pleasure pockets they have in Pune and Bangalore, and which places they love to go and they like to relax. So it's all audio, and there's nothing video in that. And they narrate the whole story, that I'm walking through this place and I can see this, I am in a market and these things are happening. So that women from other cities can listen to them and feel encouraged to come out and see their city. I'm sure women from Pune would not have seen Pune in that way, because it's little sad to see that the country I come from, women are not very relaxed when they're traveling in their own city. We don't travel for pleasure or anything. We travel for a purpose from point A to point B. It's never like looking out for things and for fun walking around. So this Own Your City we created so that we can promote, we can help women to come out of their house and see the city in a different way and have fun also while navigating their own city. And also about podcast, what I forgot is this podcast was also used for young girls living with disability. I'm talking about blind girls. So because it was for them to teach about their body, about menstruation, this audio podcasts were used and they really liked it. So it was a fun class where they could listen to things and they could discuss with us what do they think about their body and all. So yeah, that's what podcast is at Hidden Pockets Collective. Now I will ask Jasmine to please come and talk about the maps.
Aisha. So, like Aisha was mentioning that at the collective, we have been trying to use technology, and thing we realized over time is that when we use the internet, it has somehow been reduced to some certain platforms. So, say Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or Google. It's basically two company, Google and Facebook, that is producing everything and creating everything for everybody. And we thought that was not the only way to go about it. So we started looking for alternatives. So definitely we looked for alternatives in terms of and radio and podcast, what Aisha mentioned. We were also fascinated with the maps. And it's basically because work with women and we work with access to service. And one of the things we realized was while we're talking about abortion, while we're talking about adolescent sexuality, we're talking to people who are already very marginal. We are talking to people whose access to information is very limited. On top of it, if it's only available in some places, become very. So we started mapping some of this information on different spaces, and that was the first time we realized, even in maps. And let us be honest, in the beginning, we thought Google Maps was the map, the only truth for that matter. And it was interesting for us to learn from other mappers, other enthusiasts who were very keen about mapping their city, very keen about around the city. They told us there are different types of maps. They told us it's not true that only some people decide sitting in US that what should go on map. Even you could decide. So these are very interesting ideas for us. So that was the first time Hidden Pockets took interest. So and we started going for mapping parties. We had more volunteers, more people from the collective who joined us in the mapping parties, and we started mapping our own city. So we started putting things that we thought were important on the map. So it was interesting because when we started looking at the map, we could only see restaurants and pubs and theater. And even though we believe in pleasure and believe in the fun aspect of a city, we were a little surprised by the fact that why is police station not there? Why is public health center not there? Why is abortion clinic not popping up really on a map? And then we realized Google really doesn't think of it as a priority. It's not driven. It's not something that Google thinks of it as a priority. But as a woman or as a person who would like to access these services, we thought we wanted to look at a city that is relatable to us. So we started doing that. And that was the first time we definitely started expanding that. Tech can have a value. Tech can be treated both sides. I'm a lawyer. So that also helps in some way in debunking our own fear of tech. Tech really sometimes seems very far away, like very detached. So it was nice to actually play with this tech and actually, instead of just being a consumer, also be a producer of the tech. So that was very, very important for us. At the collective, that's something we have been really trying to focus on, like for alternatives from the existing institutions. So the existing mainstream technology, existing mainstream spaces where people go looking for help. Because what we are actually focusing on is reproductive health, and it's very tough in general to talk about it in global South in general. So we thought if we could play and if with the tech, existing tech, and we could actually keep putting our information on internet and make it more available for everybody, maybe slowly along the time it will be easier for young women, it will be easier for adolescents to pick it up and speak. Because one thing is platform, another thing is the language in which it was being put up. So I'm not just talking about language in terms of our English, Hindi, and other languages, but also the kind of narrative that is being put up, the symbols that are being put up. It's everything is very important. So it is important for us to be part of it, create technology in the way that benefits us more, and we actually make it more participatory. So that's something that we have been trying to do at Project, and really excited to be a part of a festival where we get a chance to meet other people also and hear about what are some of the great alternatives that people are doing in their community. So yeah, thank you. Now I would actually like to invite Natasha to hear what is really happening in Brussels and how they are using tech in a way that is helping build their community.
Hello. First, I'm quite impressed with the importance of the initiative and what you present with Hidden Pockets. So thank you for that and for sharing. And well, I'm coming from another background since I'm usually not in direct contact with the people who have the needs. I try to, and actually it's one of the big issues about developing tech and, among other things, free software. It is that it's a challenge to be able to at the same time working on the technology and working with the need of the people, and it's the finding integration models is what we are working about. So I will I was asked to speak about our structure that is called Petite Singularité. So we are a Brussels-based collective that is been existing for some years. We're well implemented in the free software European scene, and we had the chance to discover in India this group of hackers that get together yearly, twice a year actually, at Hill Hacks and at Hack Beach. That where we had amazing meetings, and I think this is the origins of this encounter. So I will share with you our current project that is in common. And yes, here I go. So in common is it's a technological system based on cartography and data from community mapping. And the issue is that there are several projects that are also listed on the forum that is associated to In Common that you can see here, where we welcome every mapping initiative, community mapping initiative, to discuss and get together, sharing their info and their format. And our aim with the In Common project is to create some form of interoperability. So we're working with different developers, different community mapping projects in Europe, and now hopefully, if this continues, maybe in India. And we also have contacts in Latin America and quite a lot in well. And the idea is to bring together a system that not only allows to map the information, but also allows to verify and keep the information updated a long time. Because the information that is put on a map is an effort that is binding the community that does it at the moment when it is done. And often it's difficult to keep the community binding, to keep the information updated. So it's nice to be able to decentralize it in the way that mainstream applications have been doing it for a long time already, for restaurants or whatever stuff they chose to put in value. But for our community structures, there is no specific organization. So it's both a question of software, it's a question also of priority and right. Who has the right to update something? Who moderates something? What happens if the person that has been mapping something or putting something on the map disappears? Is there someone else that can do it for that person? So those are the issues we are tackling. And another things we are interested in is also the territory. And so we're not only mapping data and, like the dot on a map and a bit of a commentary, an address and a phone number, but we're also trying to tackle issues of polygons and when territory fights in ecology landscape, for example. So I guess, yeah, happy to have any questions.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you to all of you for sharing with us about your projects. I mean, I think we can all have our cameras on now so that we can have a short question answer round with each other. Okay. So I think when I was listening to all of you, something I noticed that you're both the projects, although they are quite different, but they have certain similarities, of course. But one thing I noticed is that you're both dealing with topics. For example, when you're dealing with reproductive health, and as you mentioned repeatedly, that it is still a taboo. And also, podcasts are not the most common kind of medium. I mean, compared to some other more popular mediums. So when you're having to explain to people what you're doing, and even with Natasha, your project, when you're explaining to people about community mapping and how it works, I mean, I expect that you face a certain number of questions or doubts, or and you do face hurdles in your work. So if both of you could share what certain hurdles that you faced or how you overcame them.
So if I have to speak about podcasts, so when we take it and go to government schools, or we go to community community to play it, I change my the way I present it. I don't say podcast because they won't understand a word if I tell this is a podcast. And there are times where when I'm with the students, I sit, and when I say it's a podcast, I will define what a podcast is, and they would be like, oh, it's just like radio. It used to come during radio, right? We have live radio. So I will tell, yeah, it's like radio, but it's like it's all pre-recorded and it's there on internet. So radio is something like we had when we were kids. Radio is something which was live, or real time radio. So when I go to the community, I talk to them telling this is like the music you have in your phone. And the thing is, when I'm dealing with children who are 11-year-old or maybe 13, 14, so I have to change my the way I speak and what I'm telling them. So when we go and talk to people who understand podcast, then you can use the word podcast and why we are doing, how we are doing. But when you go to when your audience is like children who are from school who have no clue what you're talking about, you have to make different stories and make them understand. So what is this, what we're talking about? And even when we go to government schools, sometimes even the teachers don't follow anything. They would be like, we didn't understand, how will it work, and where do we go, what is this open source, what are you talking about? So they become blank about it. So like you said, not everybody has a an idea about what is open source and you can how you can use it. So somewhere when we go to the community, we have to give extra knowledge about where you can access this, how you can access it, and if you're not able to access it, how you can download on your phone. Or we have to just change the narration and make it simpler. And because I feel that there's no point if we create something and everybody is finding it very complicated to use and not able to understand that what is this, how do we use it. So it's sounding like a rocket science right now. So making it sound simpler and with something they can relate to, and they will enjoy using it, they will understand very easily and enjoy using it, rather than they will feel like, oh shit, now I have to do this also, like government school teacher telling, oh no, now I have to learn internet, I have to figure out what to do, where to go. Instead of that, making things simpler for the person by explaining them in a very simple word what can be done, and figuring out how they can use it very in a simple way.
Thank you for that. I mean, yeah, I assumed when I was listening to you that these problems would be there. Similarly, I think for InCommon, if you share, um, making what like a cooperative data library, let's say that term, to someone like me, I mean, it's quite abstract. So, I mean, what kind of questions have you faced from people who've been interested in your projects? If you could share a bit.
So yeah, that's our issue. With InCommon, we are a bit in Belgium. We're a bit in direct contact with the communities, but often we are not, and we are more in contact with people who hold projects who are themselves in contact with the communities. So I guess our issue is more an issue of adoption and having people have trust to support what we tend to do because they understand it, and making materials so that they themselves can share it with the community they work with, which is why we really need people who are on the grounds to do this work. And sometimes what happens, it's not easy. You always find financing for developing tech. You manage it somehow or some way, and often it's not money is not available for the people who are on the grounds, which is, I think, very unfair and completely absurd, because how can you develop something if people don't use it? What's the point of it?
Right. And another thing that I noticed that was, of course, in common to both, like what Jasmine, you said about how we usually tend to see ourselves as consumers of tech and not creators of tech. And whereas the InCommon as well, it focuses on taking back control from big tech and, you know, the people who steal our data really. And so this I think is a common factor in both your projects, although as Natasha pointed out that you are more a group that's working on the ground, and Natasha's group is collecting information and trying to facilitate cooperation between those kinds of projects. But this theme, since it's common, I mean, if you could shed some more light on how you plan to continue with this, since this is a particular focus that I found was common in both of your projects. If you could just share about your future.
So, no, I just want to add,
Yeah.
I used to always say this before that 10 years back, I used to use Facebook for having fun. And when I said fun, I actually had different names on Facebook. So I find it very difficult today that people think of us Facebook as a very serious, honest thing. I always use Facebook for fun. So I'm very surprised by the change in the 10 years of Facebook becoming a identity. Similarly, I noticed that we have some young people who work with us, and they keep telling us that Facebook is for professional work and Instagram is for fun. So I feel like we're always trying to catch up with the latest generation. So I think so people make sense of internet. I don't think so tech platforms make sense. People make sense, and people, yeah, I find it in a way it's ironic also that tech platforms are spending so much of money trying to figure out people's behavior, and they're just destroying internet in every way possible to have more and more fun. But like Aisha said, and I'm pretty sure even InCommons might have experienced this. People are curious for information, and internet was supposed to give us that information. People are curious; they would like to know more, and they will keep digging. They'll keep floating. They'll keep drowning. It's actually an ocean, and whoever makes it easier, people in the beginning tend to go there, but there is a sense of boredom. There's a sense of dissatisfaction that after that people start looking for something more. So internet on its own has that evolving capacity. I personally think people will be tired of tech very soon, and we would have to move into something else. People will get tired. Even I've heard the Zoom fatigue. All these calls are very tiring in general. So I feel like it will happen. But even even in a country like India, where radio still makes sense after all these decades, people are still dependent on radio as an information. Now people are going back to, even when we were trying to figure out podcasts, I remember even our parents, they thought it was like WhatsApp voice messages, because they find it difficult to type. So they used to send us 3 minutes long voice messages. So they were like, yeah, what's so special about podcast? We have done this. So it was interesting for me to see my senior parents like using tech the way they would like, because they found typing very tough on WhatsApp. They would go for audio. That's the idea. Podcast actually came from them for us. So it's interesting. But yeah, as I said, internet will keep evolving. People will use it the way they want it. Tech companies will try their level best to limit people to some platforms, but the curiosity keeps coming back. That's the hope speaking right now. But I think so as communities also, after sometimes we all want to see ourselves in the app, in the solutions, in spaces. So, and I think so the newer ones, the newer consumers or the newer users of tech are far more demanding. So they will really push the wheel in some way. So it'll be even more fascinating how what more can be done with with all the changes that is happening right now.
Natasha, do you want to add to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely I can add something about that because I have some things that I'm not sure about. I just wanted to mention one thing. I agree. I love radio. Radio has saved my life many times, and I do a lot of radio shows and alternative and very local radio shows, and I love them. So yeah, all yes for radio. It has many uses. About the idea that people that there is people and that there is the internet. I'm afraid that I probably have a very different vision of the internet than you have, than other people can have, and we probably have a different access to technology in general. And many times I just when I find myself in front of the computer of someone who has no education towards technology, I just don't know how they can deal with it because it's just full of mess that is impossible to deal with. And I spend I don't know how many times hours cleaning up people's computer. So this is the state of tech right now, and there is very little education that is done towards appropriation, towards formalization. It's not a question of being playing or not, because right now we're entering a stage where many things will be mandatory online, like official things. And unfortunately, most people, and not only in India, because it happens here also, do not have the accesses to fulfill what is demanded to them. So I think the issue we need to tackle is really stepping back and rebuild tools that we can share among ourselves with communities that have little or no access to connections, with communities that use different mediums for exchanging, that are not literate as, you know, I mean, it's a large part of the world's population who do not use reading and writing as a main medium of communication. It's huge. And all those issues need to be put at the center of how we deal with our new technological societies.
I think it's a very important point that you raised here, because I think because of the way we interact with technology and the way we interact with the internet, especially, I mean, there's this hegemony of big tech and the corporate entities that sort of control almost everything, and a lot of us never stop to question this dominance that they have, this power that they have, this almost unlimited power that they have over every aspect of our experience with technology. And initiatives like yours, which I mean, unfortunately, are still alternative initiatives and not, technically mainstream, although, like, even this distinction between mainstream and alternative is a construct, of course. But I think we have almost run out of time. But I think it was great that we had this opportunity to hear you speak, and like me, I'm sure the audiences were also enriched by what you had to say, and we will of course be providing links to your respective projects that people can go on and explore, and hopefully communicate with you too as well if they have questions. And thank you very much for your participation in this festival, and especially since this was the first conversation that we had, and we are very glad that it began with something so important and something so significant and that has so much potential. And thank you to everyone who has joined us, who listened to this conversation. And please do go through the Hidden Pockets and In Common and the work that they have been doing. And also please check out deconfine.org. The online exhibition awaits. And we have a number of interesting conversations lined up for the following weeks. Please do have a look. And thank you very much once again to everybody.
Thank you, Praiti, so much for the festival. Praiti, just wanted to say that it's really nice to see internet being used for curation of conversations like this, and it's also great to actually have people from across borders come together and talk about different types of solutions, especially community driven, because I think so that's something needed, especially during times like this where we're all confined and sitting in our homes trying to figure out, and in a way being forced to spend more time on internet, but at the same time also curious to look for alternatives. So I think so the festival happened at the right time, and really glad to know about In Commons and actually the efforts that's happening in a different continent, and how and I think so that even the collaboration with Hill Hacks, it's always fascinating to hear Hill Hacks being mentioned in every forum possible. But yeah, really best of luck for the festival and looking forward to the other sessions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think.
Yeah, goodbye and thank you.
Thank you for inviting.